Thanks everyone for joining us. And this is the August installment of our national forum, the monthly forum. We have some new faces and lots of the old stalwarts. So thank you for joining us for this refresher training. As usual, we'll cover a couple of topics today. And as usual, before we start, I'll give you a couple of quick updates just to let you know where we are. And I have a couple of updates for everyone as we get the ball rolling here. In terms of what we've been up to, you've probably heard me say already that we finished overall about a 4-week engagement of a nuclear power plant. Very important because it was the first of a kind complete site performance assessment looking into the plant's performance dating back to 2017. Behavioral analysis studies, 26,856 condition reports were evaluated, all their key performance indicators. So this was huge, and we hope INPO and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission pay attention. Nobody's done this before. We're also prepping and waiting for Ontario Power Generation, which is Pickering and Darlington, to give us the green light to get started over there. We also are waiting to hear on a equipment reliability assessment at PSE&G, which is Salem and Hope Creek nuclear plants in New Jersey. We also have had some workshops that I've loved going to these. These are the live ones. This one is at Oratech over in Oak Ridge National Laboratory at their training center. We're about to have another one at this exact building in a few weeks, in 3 weeks. This is in June at Albuquerque, New Mexico. That was a great class. Multiple industries were present there. Most recently, I just got back a couple weeks ago from Livermore National Laboratory, Lawrence Livermore in California. Quite a great group, and we still have about a half a dozen or more of their folks to train going forward. So they're making an annual investment in Blue Dragon training. And it was good to see a lot of new faces and a few returning ones as well. Okay, so with that as a quick backdrop, there's a couple of topics that we'd like to discuss today. The first one is giving you a refresher on human performance evaluations. And lots of folks are talking about different things that are related. The latest and greatest terminology is HOP, human and organizational performance, right? And so a lot of folks think this is something new. Well, it's not. HOP is grounded on behavioral analysis that came from the 1980s post 3 Mile Island, first developed at the Institute of Nuclear Power Operations. And they created their INPO Human Performance Evaluation System. And basically, it is the behavioral analysis of its day. And I took this 1-week course directly from INPO. It was awesome. I still have the manual. I can still see it from my desk. So it really influenced how I approach solving problems because I believe, as INPO pointed out, that when humans make mistakes, it's the starting point for the investigation. You know, you talk to Priscilla, Senior Chief Morrow there from the Navy, and she'll tell you, in the military, as in so many other industries, we don't go very far past blaming the person involved or the persons involved. And of course, I just finished talking yesterday to the commanding officer of a squadron in Norfolk, Virginia, because they were having serious issues. One of a couple other craft bumped about a year ago. They had to retire both craft. The overall cost of the Navy and the taxpayer is $86 million because 2 hovercraft bumped. What did I hear from the CO that they did? They disqualified people. They got rid of some people, moved people around, right? And made some programmatic enhancements. And I didn't have the heart to tell them that that's not going to solve anything, right? Those are band-aids on symptoms, and you're not just going to go fix people and call it a day. That's not how it works. Behavioral analysis, integral part of Blue Dragon, founded on very solid ground. It started in commercial nuclear. And we have, well, what I've created is a very solid rubber meets the road approach. And what I mean by that is we need to simply have a strategy for getting after the 2 main things that go into human behavior, where the people put themselves at risk and those around them, and where the organization set the people up to fail. So we call them at-risk behaviors and error likely situations. And the error likely situations survey I'm about to show you has been around forever, right? It's been around from commercial nuclear for a long time. If you look at the pamphlet, and I have this pamphlet right here. If you look at the pamphlets from Human and Organizational Performance and the tools that they're talking about, and specifically look at their little cheat sheet, right? What do these look like? These are identical to the INPO error precursors, the ones we've been using for, I don't know, 50 years plus. So HOP and what they're calling out and what we're doing here in the modern era is not new. It's just been a little bit of undergone a little bit of rebranding, repackaging. But here's the nice part of it. It fits right into what we do. If you're a disciple of HOP and have really latched onto it because you understand the significance of the importance of evaluating human performance as a starting point, not as the end all, then we're in great shape. We've had that covered since the start. Okay. And the way we approach it is we're going to identify the defenses that should have kept the humans safe, should have kept the humans from making mistakes. There should have been sufficient guidance for the humans to do their jobs safely. So we have that to start with, but we also look at the human interfaces with the world around them, their environment. And that includes the materials, the tools, the equipments that they're using. Notice that we do that as well in the chart, right? So by the time we're done, we've got most things wrapped up. Now, surveys. This is what we're here to talk about today. We have the error likely situation survey that we issue. Everyone has a copy of this. In fact, I'd like to put a copy on the chat. Michelle, can you do that for me? I have some of the other stuff already preloaded on the chat, but I don't have this survey on our chat. Let's put that one on there so everyone can download it. But the error likely situation survey is something we use every time there's a mistake or someone gets injured or there's a human problem or a human component to our problem or our event. And we need to understand whether these pressure situations changed human behaviors, right? So we issue the survey, we tabulate the results. We actually take qualitative information we get from the individuals where they check the box, and we can do a Pareto analysis and convert it into a quantitative by tabulating the number of responses per each of these boxes, right? So the handout actually has the actually has a paragraph description for every one of these. All right, very good. So while Mitch is getting that, there it is. She has that survey on screen. I want to make sure you understand that that's just one of many, many, many options. There's so many other things you could do. If you really want to get deeper and let's say you suspect that this issue deals with a serious industrial safety cultural issue, well, here's the Safety Management International Collaboration Group survey, right? Now this one happens to be 68 pages. So by the time you read the instructions and figure out how to use it, it is a power-packed survey. So it's a big one. Here's another big one, 87 pages from NIOSH, right? The National Institutes of Health. This is the NIOSH Worker Wellbeing Questionnaire, the WellBQ. And that's slightly different than safety culture. This is talking about the environment that the worker lives in and kind of in the mental well-being aspects that we would want to investigate, right? So there's certain situations where you might feel like you're looking into the worker well-being, how well they're treated at work. Now let's talk nuclear safety. This is the Institute of Nuclear Power Operations assessment of the nuclear safety culture, right? And that one, only 19 pages of instructions and guidelines. And then there's Harvard, the Harvard Workplace Integrated Safety and Health, the WISH assessment. So this one's only 5 pages, right? So this is a smattering of the surveys that are off the shelf and available to us. Now, you come up against a situation where there is nothing that really covers what you have. You got to do a custom survey. And that's exactly why I've invited a guest speaker for today. Brian Dunn, professional engineer who retired about 2.5 years ago from NextEra Energy Nuclear. He's been a chief engineer for the utility, director of fleet design engineering, other positions like that. So he was actually my co-assessor at the Perry assessment, and we had to create a customized assessment based on the guidance that the industry gave us. So I'd actually like to introduce Brian here and let him take over the screen and talk about this custom assessment or behavior survey that we have.
So we went through, and Rob mentioned we use a lot of info. There's a lot of info documents on leadership, equipment reliability, organizational performance. So we took all those documents outlined here. Rob mentioned the safety culture there. We've got leadership, we've got improving cultural performance, and we've got equipment reliability. And we went through and tried to align all these. There's a lot of overlap between the documents. They don't exactly line up. So what we did is we put together all the attributes on an integrated database. So all the principles for an effective organization that we went through, we tagged them to their document, and we broke them down into sections, and from that we generated survey questions. So we went through this exercise. So we have a database of all these documents, and the client, Perry, wanted to emphasize 1211 as one of the focus areas. Sorry, 1212. And so we did that, factored in. So we took all those, we came up with a list of about 170 questions that to put in this survey. So then we sat down with the team, and based on their feedback, because they had already done some surveys, they had some insight on where their weaknesses, they had done some self-assessments. We went through and culled that down to about 50 questions. And in the 50 questions, there was various sections talking about leadership, change management, equipment reliability, accountability, et cetera. And we went through and we put that survey together. We generated it to score basically from 1 to 10. We did have we did it so you put the organization and the position so we could analyze the data from different levels of the organizations and different organizational components, maintenance, ops. And then we threw in a couple of, I'll call open-ended questions. One of my favorite is, if you were king for a day, what would you change? And then we also asked them to weight the top 3 items in each of those 5 areas of which they think are the most important. So we sent that survey out. We had about 230 respondents. It's about 40 to 50% of the population. So we had very good turnout. We got a lot of good information. So we took that, and then we broke it down and started slicing and dicing it. So as I mentioned, we have by position, by organization. And the other thing I forgot to mention, we were asked to address 2 different timeframes, 2020 and 2021, and then post that based on some of the INPO ratings and when the station felt their decline was evident. And then we went through and broke it down by today and pre in 2021. Then we analyzed the deltas between the 2 and did some other slicing and dicing, and that's the unweighted survey data. And we did a similar thing. So we took the top 3 scores in each of the area, 3 worst scores, and weighted them and did the same thing to see if that changed our data. And then we binned all the written comments to try and gather them and put that qualitative assessment into a quantitative assessment. So what we ended up getting, so then we took and put it into, I'll call it heat map format. So you can look and see where the problem areas. This happened to be by position, right? So you have the first line supervisor, for example, and here's all the organization, and it sums it up by position. And then we also did it by organization. So you could, filter out and drill down into different organizations to see if you have one organization that's a problem child versus the other, and which organization do the employees think are doing a good job. So you could take some of the things they're doing and apply it across the other organizations to improve the site. And then we looked at, where did we get better and where did we get worse? So again, put some more insight into that data. So there was a lot of data analysis, and then at the end, we took that data analysis and we took the most significant areas, both from an overall score and where the declines or improvements were, and we converted those into lines of inquiry. And we used those lines of inquiry for the focus groups to try and get a little more insight into why the survey respondents said what they did, and that led us to some pretty good causes. That was a pretty good exercise. So that's the 50,000-foot level. Rob, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or.
No, very good. We also took, and I'll share my screen. We also took those questions at the end where we said if you were king for the day, and what else, what other notes you want to give us? And we took those written statements, and again, about 200 plus statements in narrative form, and we pulled those out of the surveys, put them in a separate file, threw them into artificial intelligence. And as you see here on the right, we have a report as to what the folks were saying, gathered and organized by AI into themes and patterns and so on. And you can see here, the main patterns here happen to be deferred maintenance, equipment reliability, workforce knowledge gaps, leadership and accountability, communication and teamwork breakdowns, and ineffective change management. So we got the big ticket items coming out of the narratives. We have all of the quantifiable data, because what we did to score it was we said for each question, here's your question, score it from 1 to 10, 10 being the worst. We wanted to know, if, this is what the question says. Management communicates a clear mission, vision, etc. 1 being great, you do this great, 10 being horrible. And the questions with the most points, right, is the worst. And that's how we selected which ones to go forward with in terms of lines of inquiry questions. And then the report on the right took all the narratives and we let AI do its thing. By the way, again, I use Microsoft Copilot Researcher, phenomenal, love it, to do deep dives into patterns and things like that. They also had Nuke-Learn, their own AI, which is like ChatGPT, ChatOPG. It's Nuke-Learn, and also useful. So that's what we wanted to share with you all today. The fact that the behavioral surveys are key and integral to all of the investigations we do where humans are involved. And what's that? Almost all of them, right? So the very simple one, the Error Life Situation Survey, that's an easy throwdown. That's easy to run, easy to tabulate. We use them in class as examples of the results that you might get. And here we have a plethora of other bigger, wider surveys should you need them, from worker well-being to industrial safety to nuclear safety, whatever you like. I'm sure there's a survey off the shelf that will satisfy you, or develop your own based on your client's criteria, right? So that's another avenue, another path you could take. And now with that as a backdrop, let's open it up for any questions or comments on behavioral analysis and how we use it to effectively do a holistic evaluation of any given situation, from small all the way to the wicked issues.
I'll maybe start with a question. So for you and Brian, I guess, you said that you were comparing the results to 2020 and 2021 in your analysis, but your survey was, I assume, like today.
Mhm.
So what kind of information did you have from 5 years ago, or how did you base that comparison? What did you base that on?
Well, the question, each of the questions was broken up into 2 parts. How did you rate in that 2021 time frame? and how do you rate it today? So we had the data from both, and then there were some people that didn't answer because they weren't here in 2021.
Right.
It's purely the idea was to purely get their understanding, their impression, or their feeling, I guess, if you will, of how they think things are going. So we did tailor the survey to 2 parts for each question.
Each question had 2 answers from a scale of 1 to 10. And one of the things we were looking for, Brian pointed that out, is where it either went up or down in those 2 periods for the same exact question, meaning there was improvement in this area or decline in this area. We highlighted that as well. And that came out in the AI as well.
Yeah, one of the themes on one of the tasks was to have sustainable performance. So they're looking at the difference and changes in performance as throughout the years to see what they've done well and what they haven't done to keep them at the higher level.
Thank you, Betsy. I have a question for everyone while you're all pondering your questions. I'd like to ask, who has done surveys? Who has done behavioral surveys at your sites? Either the DOE sites or Bechtel. Scott.
We have not done specific surveys. I definitely use that checklist that you showed as part of, in any investigation, as we're going through the investigation, if in the course of interviews or what have you, run across any of those air precursors, that's just a flag for me to say, okay, let's make sure that in our LOIs, we're drilling down deep enough to really understand why those air precursors were present. So that's kind of how I use it. Haven't used it formally, sent it out as like a survey type of thing.
Very good. Well, if you have a big enough Blue Dragon, you might end up pulling one of the bigger surveys, not the simple off-the-shelf one.
Yeah.
Very
So we've done the same thing as like what Scott's talking about whenever we do causals, we'll go ahead and provide, we'll show them this and ask them to pick out what they feel are the top 3 that may have possibly contributed to the issue. And then we gather their feedback, but we also use that as sort of also basis for some initial lines of inquiry. So that's how we've used it. A question I do have though, Rob, is so like with the survey here that you have, it asks for honest responses. Do you ask for them to select so many or just say, pick the top so many or just select any that you feel may have attributed to the issue?
Brian, go ahead.
Are you talking about the population or the actual question?
So I'm referring to actually your error likely situation survey, Rob, the Blue Dragon one.
Oh, the simple one. Yeah, the one based on info.
Simple one. Yeah.
My favorite way to do this is in a spreadsheet where we ask them to give it points. For each question, give it a point from 1 to 10, 10 being the worst. And then as in typical Pareto style, I'll pick a cutoff as to which ones were the worst. And those are the ones that I use lines of inquiry for. So that's for me, the easiest way to do it is to collect points and do the 80-20 thing on the results. So very good strategy, works all the time. You could also do it the way you say, which is simply, here's a sheet, give us your top 3. And then you still have to tally them up and see which ones bubbled up to the surface. It's most prevalent. I like the spreadsheet approach because it's much more visible, quantifiable when you ask them to give it a score.
Right. Okay.
Rob, what would be like the smallest population of people you would do that for, as opposed to just kind of like what Robbie and I do is, as we go through an investigation, we tick the box, we run across it.
Yeah, great point, because I asked for a representative sample. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Representative sample, right? Well, if you have 20 mechanics in the area, a representative sample might be 5. If you have 200, you're going to need 50. The representative sample for Perry was 230 out of 500. So it was a significant sample. We don't do mil spec or anything like that. We kind of wing it. But I shudder to think that I'd have less than a half a dozen, right, to get anything and out of that. So
Right. Okay.
it depends how many people were sort of involved in the event, knowledgeable of the event. If it's a single person issue, you're probably not doing a Blue Dragon of any magnitude. It's probably a little cakewalk and you wouldn't even need this. You might ask them bluntly, hey, did any of these pressures apply? And you do a one-off. So it varies dramatically based on who's involved, how many were involved.
Rob, do you want to mention the survey tool you used? Because that made it a lot easier.
So one of the things that we did, and that's why I love Michelle, we developed a survey with the client. So we had 170 plus questions. The client helped us whittle it down to 50. I handed the 50 to Michelle, our admin, and she went to Microsoft Forms. Loaded it all in a beautiful form that could be easily, you give the link to everyone, it goes online, they take it online. And what Microsoft Forms gives you as an output is an Excel spreadsheet. So when we download the results, it's already, here are the questions, and here's the numbers, the number scores for each of the questions. And each question had 2 scores, the before and the after, or the before and the current. Right, there's what the form spit out of Microsoft Forms, the online survey. So you see the numbers there, the raw numbers for each of the questions, each question having 2 columns. Thanks, Brian. That's a good prompt. I know you're not using them. I know you're not doing a great job of behavioral analysis surveys. This is why I thought this would be a good topic. And if you don't mind, get the word out, grab this video when we publish it online, show it to others, because it's a great starting point for additional insights into what really happened and how we set up the personnel to fail with these external pressures, right? And I mean, I just ran into 2 great examples of how tragic this is. One of them, I spoke to a CO of a military unit, and another, our own senior chief, who's here on loan from the Navy, was telling us tragically how little is done to really investigate their mishaps thoroughly. And so it is hugely disappointing that the military is not learning from these issues, and they're doomed. They're doomed to repeat thousands and thousands of issues a year. And now you understand why I have such an issue with the suicide rate and how it's climbing, the sexual assault rates and how it's climbing in the military. And they have literally spent billions of our taxpayer dollars on all kinds of programs. And for sexual assault and harassment, I believe the number was 240 some congressional acts. Go look it up. I actually have it on a Blue Dragon chart because I did a little preliminary. This is how I would investigate sexual assaults in the military, right? Very important topic. I hope you get a lot of this, out of these 20 minutes. Anyone else before we move on? I'd like to thank Brian. Brian was extremely helpful and a key to getting this behavioral analysis done very quickly here for this massive performance assessment that we finished. Okay.